you that we were going to finish up this note sheet on quadratic formula, and then I was going to give you a worksheet, hopefully with enough time that you would have ample amount to finish it before class was over, and that should be the case. So far in first and second period, most people have finished it with the time that's remaining. So I would expect nothing less from you guys. So let's go to the back. We're going to go through number 7, 9, and 10. 7, 9, and 10. And before you leave, not only will you get the homework that has 6 problems, but you'll also get a review. The review is not homework. Fletcher, you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. The review is absolutely not an assignment over this long weekend. I will not come in on Tuesday expecting that you guys did it. However, it would be, if it's something that you want to do to get ahead, that's your prerogative, okay? It's not extra credit. It's nothing like that. I just give it out in case some people want to try to get ahead. So you'll get that before you leave today as well. So the homework is due Tuesday, and the review is not. But if you want to try to get ahead, that would be optional for you. All right, so let's do number 7, 9, and 10. They're a little different. There's a couple things about these that we need to make sure you understand before I give you guys the assignment. Okay? So for example, on this one, I need to move that 4x over. How? All right, minus 4x. And then, of course, that minus 9, I'm going to put at the end because now it's in what we call standard form. Now listen, here is the first one. Of all these examples that we did, this is the first one that if I tried to factor this, guess what? It wouldn't. I can't find 2 numbers that multiply to get 9 and have a difference of 4. It's not possible. Okay, it's not possible. So I can't factor it. So this is where quadratic formula comes in handy. Like I told you guys yesterday, it's a fail-safe. It always will solve a quadratic formula. Whether that quadratic could be factored, whether it was, GCF, you could pull a GCF out, whether it was difference of squares, no matter what, okay? Quadratic formula will always work. Luke, you got a question?
Yeah, we have the formula on the test.
Yes. Yeah. I'll put it up here on the board. I do think you need to start trying to memorize it because it's not on the EOC test. But for our test next week, you will have it. Okay? In fact, I'll probably do what I did last year. I just pull it up on the computer and I leave it on the screen where it's nice and big. So yeah, you'll have it. Okay? Now, let's go ahead and let's label our A, B, and our C values. Remember, A is always your x squared coefficient. So what is x squared coefficient? 1. B, your x coefficient. And then finally C, your constant. Alright, so here we go. This formula that, again, a lot of you guys probably already got it. It goes like this. Negative B, that's negative 4, plus or minus the square root of B squared. And what did I say you have to do because your B value is negative? Please don't forget, you've got to put that negative 4 in parentheses when it's negative. Squared. B squared minus 4 times A, what's A? Times C, what's C? And all of this is divided by 2 times A. 1. Okay? So, step 2, I like to just clean some stuff up. Like, for example, negative 4, what's that going to become? It's going to be a positive 4. Plus or minus the square root of, we're going to leave the radical, and we're just going to type in what's underneath. So type in parentheses, negative 4, close parentheses, squared, minus 4 times 1 times negative 9. What'd you get? 52, right? Okay. Double check it real quick. And make sure you put that negative 4 in parentheses. Something, you may have hit something wrong. Try it one more time. I think you'll get it.
I'm getting 32. I got negative 20. I got negative 20.
You didn't.
You didn't put the negative 4 in parentheses.
Oh,
They don't even reset it.
oh, I should have
do
did
that.
that.
Look,
You're gonna have to square it. Remember, it's b squared. So it's like that.
That's how I typed it in.
No, it's negative 9. Yeah, it was negative 9. You went ahead. You put the radical. Let's leave the radical off until. Let's just do what's underneath the radical. So let's leave that out of the initial type in. Yes?
Isn't the radical on the plus or minus?
No, the radical is the square root. The plus or minus is just what tells you, hey, there's two answers. I'm adding this value and I'm subtracting this value. Okay? Alright, so we got it now. We're at 52, everybody. Okay, just be careful the way you plug it in. And then, of course, on the bottom, we've got 2 times 1, which is what? Alright, so when Luke typed this in, Luke typed it in with that radical there. And you got 7.2. See, 52 is not a perfect square. All the ones that we did yesterday, they were perfect squares. They came right out. We added that value divided by the denominator. We subtracted that value divided by the denominator. But this one, it's not a perfect square. So we're going to go back to what we did the day before that. And we're going to take 52 and we're going to break it down. We're going to break it down. What do I mean by break it down? We're going to try to find the biggest perfect square that goes into it. So I know it's not, so I divide it by 2, that's 26. Don't try a perfect square above 26. The first perfect square below 26 is 25. And I know 25 doesn't go into 52. What's the next one? Will 16 go evenly into 52? No. After 16, you've got 9. Will 9 go evenly into 52? No. The next one, well, the last one we can really try is 4. Will 4 go evenly in? 13 times. So 4, our last effort, goes into 52 13 times. And I know that's right because 13 is a prime number. There's no way it can break down. So 4, being a perfect square, gets to break out as a what? As a 2. And that square root of 13 gets trapped inside. So let's rewrite this, okay? Let's replace the square root of 52 with what?
2 times square root.
So 4 plus or minus 2 square root of 13 over 2. Now listen, am I allowed to add a number that has no radical with a number that has a radical? No, I can't go 4 plus 2. And I can't go 4 minus 2. Because 2 is attached to that square root. So we kind of treat it like it's 2 separate terms. So are those 2 separate terms here both divisible by my denominator? Yeah, they're both divisible by 2. So to finish this thing out, I'm going to divide both of those by 2. What's 4 divided by 2? So I'm left with 2 plus or minus. What happens to 2 divided by 2? It kind of cancels. It's 1 square root of 13. But I don't need the 1 there. So I leave my answer as 2 plus or minus the square root of 13. Now listen, if I were to ask you guys, where on the x-axis is this thing crossing? Are you going to tell me, oh, it's crossing at 2 plus square root of 13 and it's crossing at 2 minus square root of 13? No, you're not. Okay, that's dumb. I don't really love that we have to leave our answers like this. I prefer, personally, that we could give a logical answer. But on the EOC test and on the ACT test, they're not going to break that 13 out of the radical as a decimal. They're not going to do it. They're going to leave it like this.
What do you mean by like
I think,
break it all the way down?
yeah, because like, let's say the square root of 13, that's between the square root of 9 and the square root of 16. It's between 3 and 4.
Right.
So let's say it's 3.5 or 6. Okay? So to me, the logical answers are, what's 2 plus 3.5 or 6? It's 5.5 or 6. That's logical, right? What's 2 minus 3.5 or 6? It's negative 1.5 or 6. That's logical. They don't do that, okay? They leave it 2 plus or minus square root of 13. So this is one of those times where I kind of disagree with math, because to me, 2 plus or minus the square root of 13 doesn't really make logical sense. Does that make sense? But this is how we're going to leave it, because that's how you're going to see it on a test. Now, you could all go to your calculator and you can type 2 plus square root of 13 and 2 minus square root of 13, and you'll see the logical answers. But as far as what we're trying to accomplish, we're going to leave it like this, okay? Okay, whether we agree with it or not, that's how we're going to leave it. Okay, moving down here to number 9, there's 2 more things that really you need to see before you're thrown out to the wolves. Here's the first one. Negative ax squared. We're going to subtract that 4 over. What's positive 7 minus 4? Positive 3. So what's my a value, y'all? Negative 8. What's my b value? And then what's my c value? All right, so good. Y'all are good at picking out your values, right? You knew that b was 0 because there's no x term, right? There's no x term. So here we go. X equals, y'all want to do it for me? Negative 0b plus or minus the square root of b squared, 0 squared, minus 4 times negative 8 times, okay, 4ac, and all of that is divided, by 2 times negative 8. So negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. Okay? Are you clapping? You remember the song?
No.
The skipper played for you? Okay, so let's clean up.
Oh, wait, yes.
Yeah, she did. So what happens to negative 0? It's gone. So all we're going to have here is just this plus or minus. And now let's break down what's underneath it. So remember, Luke, don't type in the square root, right? Let's just break down the number that's inside it. So 0 squared minus 4 times negative 8 times 3. What'd you get? 96. And in the bottom, what's 2 times negative 8? Negative 16. All right, so first, let's talk about this 96. It's definitely not a perfect square. It's between 81 and 100, so it's between 9 and 10, a little closer to 10. So I'd say it's probably somewhere around like 9.8-ish. But we're going to break it down. We're going to try to find the biggest perfect square that goes into it, right? So 96 divided by 2. 96 divided by 2. What's that? 48. So 48. Don't try perfect square by 48. It's too loud. So 36. Will 36 go evenly into 96? Okay, 25 definitely won't, will it? 16. How many times will 16 go in there? 6. So 16, being a perfect square, gets to break out as a whole number 4. So it's 4 square root of 6. So up top, what I'm left with is plus or minus 4 square root of 6 over negative 16. All right, so here's the first thing that kind of stands out to me now that I have the solution almost done. You have that negative in the bottom, but I want you guys to think for a second. What will happen with this positive divided by that negative? It'll be a negative. But what will happen with this negative right here being divided by negative? It'll turn positive. So the plus or minus kind of swallows that negative that's in the denominator. Just kind of disappear. It makes it disappear. You don't need plus or minus over negative because the plus or minus kind of swallows the negative. Because because the positive will turn that negative negative, and the negative will turn that negative positive. So it just kind of swallows it whole. You get it? So let's just focus now on our numbers. This one has 4 as a whole number. 6 can't do anything because it's inside a radical. But 4 over 16 can I reduce? What can I reduce 4 out of 16? 1/4. So up top, I'm left with 1 square root of 6, which is just square root of 6. And in the bottom, I'm left with 4. So my answer is simply plus or minus the square root of 6 over 4. Again, one more time, just to make sure you understand this. Why did I not leave that negative in the denominator? The plus or minus takes it out. It's gone. Because it just kind of makes it disappear. Okay, the positive turns it negative, the negative turns it positive. It eats it up. So there's your final answer on number 9. Okay? Is that pretty easy, you guys? Then this one shouldn't be hard either. Let's move the 8 over. So we're left with negative x squared plus 10x minus 8 equals 0. So what's A, guys? Negative 1. What's B? 10. What's C? Negative 8. All right, so here we go. X equals negative 10b plus or minus the square root of 10 squared, b squared. I didn't have to put that in parentheses because it's not negative. Minus 4 times a, negative 1, times negative 8c, so 4ac, and all of this is divided by 2 times a, negative 1. All right, so here we go. Let's clean up. Negative 10, I cannot do anything with. Plus or minus, I'm going to leave there. The square root. Now let's type in what's underneath it. What'd you get when you did 10 squared minus 4 times negative 1 times negative 8? 68. And that is over, what's 2 times negative 1? Negative 2. Now don't just immediately get rid of that negative because you're like, oh, the plus and minus will swallow it up. Okay? Leave the negative there for the minute. We'll take care of that in a minute. Right now, our goal is to simplify what? The radical. Simplify the square root of 68. I know it's not a perfect square. It's above 8, right? 64 is 8. Square root of 64. So it's like 8 point something. It's not a perfect square. So I divide it by 2. What's 68 divided by 2? 34. Don't try a perfect square above 34. So 25, I know doesn't work. Try 16. 68 won't divide evenly by 16. Try 9. No. Last try. Will 4 go in there? 4 goes in there how many times? 17. And again, 17 is prime. So we know that's the last thing we could have done. So 4, being a perfect square, breaks out as a 2. The 17 stays trapped inside. So we rewrite this as negative 10 plus or minus 2 square root of 17 over negative 2. So look at my parts here. Is that negative 10 divisible by negative 2? Is this 2 divisible by that negative 2? So we're going to go ahead and simplify the whole thing, and we'll be done. What is negative 10 divided by negative 2? So that took care of the negative with the 10. What will happen in this next term between the plus and the minus and that negative? It cancels it out. It swallows it whole. So I'm just going to have what? Plus or minus, right? 5 plus or minus, and then of course what happens to those 2's? It's like, well, so it could be like a negative 1, right? But think about it. Would there be any reason for me to put a negative here? Because what will that plus do to the negative? It'll make it negative. What will that minus do to that negative? It'll make it positive. So there's no reason to leave that negative because the plus and minus swallow it up. So you never need a negative that follows the plus or minus. Now, the 2's cancel, essentially becoming 1 square root of 17. So my final answer, completely simplified, is 5 plus or minus square root of 17. From a logical standpoint, that would be 5 plus or minus 4.1, and then 5 minus 4.1. Okay? So your homework is the 6 problems on this worksheet that's coming your way. You got time to work on them. I've left it right here, so as you do it, you can come and check to see that you're doing it correctly. Okay? I'll these here. When I get back in here, I'll give you the review. So you can, take that home over the weekend. If you'd like to work on it, you can. If you don't want to, it's not required. But this homework is due tomorrow. I mean, Tuesday. Tomorrow. My bad.